Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Transforming Pharmacovigilance for Complex Therapies and Late-Stage Pipelines. We're excited you could join us. My name is Megan Billingsley, and I'll be moderating today's event. Today, we'll be doing a deep dive into the changing landscape of pharmacovigilance and explore the growing role for technology in helping pharmacovigilance leaders overcome the unique challenges they're facing today. We are thrilled to be joined by our speakers, Mary Coley, Executive Director, PV Operations, Patient Safety and Pharmacovigilance at Takeda, Anupam Agarwal, Senior Vice President, Global Head of Drug Safety and PV at De Novo Biopharma, Tanmay Desai, Executive Director, Head, Global PV Operations at Kyowa Kirin, and Anu Bhaskaran, Global Pharma Lead at Cognizant. Before we get started, I have just a few housekeeping items. Please note the slides will advance automatically throughout the presentation. To enlarge the slides, click the Enlarge Slides button located in the top right corner of your presentation window. If you need technical assistance, click on the Help widget located on the bottom left corner of your console. We encourage you to submit questions at any time throughout the presentation using the Q&A widget at the bottom of your console. We will try to answer these during the webcast, but if a fuller answer is needed or we run out of time, it will be answered later via email. Please know we do capture all questions. So to kick off, I'd like to ask each of our speakers to provide a quick introduction of themselves and their work. Anu, would you like to start us off?
Sure. Thanks, Megan, and hello, everyone. It's such a timely conversation. Over the past several years, I've had the privilege of working with leading pharma clients who are redefining what pharmacovigilance looks like, moving from reactive case management to proactive, intelligence-driven safety. I'm Anu Bhaskaran, and I lead life sciences for Cognizant's business process operations in North America. Our work focuses on connecting people, data, and technology to make safety operations more predictive, responsive, and patient-centric. I'm really excited to explore how that shift is playing out across complex therapies and late-stage pipelines. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Mary.
Hello, my name is Mary Coley. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to join you today. I am essentially, I head up the PV operations group at Takeda Pharmaceuticals. I've been there, I'm working on my 20th year. I'm one of the individuals who pivoted about halfway through their career when I went from bedside patient care to working in the pharmaceutical industry, which I find very fascinating and very challenging. And over the past 20 years, it's been quite, the transformation has been really quite amazing, where everything was done in-house. And now we work very closely with some excellent service providers. And we really enjoy those relationships, and we work very collaboratively, and we've got a family. The other part of our busy lives is quite often involved in healthcare inspections. So we've been through several of the, the big ones, the FDA, Health Canada, European Union, PMDA in Japan. So we are always working towards being inspection readiness. And this is why it's so important to pay attention to the technology changes that are coming along, because you really have to vet them, you have to get them instilled, you have to get everybody trained on them, and then you have to execute them and ideally stay current. And of course, the technology is moving so quickly now that it's hard to stay in front of it. So I think there's a lot of learning going on. But thanks for the opportunity, and back over to the team who's managing the next speakers.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mary. Anupam, sure. Could you tell us about yourself?
Hi, I am Anupam Agarwal. I was trained as a cardiologist, and I was in academia and private practice. And 20 years ago, I switched to pharmaceutical industry. And since then, I am working in pharmacovigilance or drug safety. I worked in large pharma, GlaxoSmithKline, Pfizer, Gilead, then switched to small biotech. So that's what I'm doing for last 20 years. And before I forget to thank you for providing me this opportunity to be on this panel and interact with all of you.
We're glad to have you. Thank you. And Tanmay.
Thank you, Megan. Hi, everyone. I'm Tanmay Desai, lead the global PV operations at Kyowa Kirin. I've been working in pharmacovigilance for nearly 2 decades now across both clinical and post-marketing settings, with a focus on global operations, outsourcing strategy, and transformation. At Kyowa Kirin, I'm currently overseeing a major redesign of our PV operating model to better support complex therapies and scale with evolving regulatory expectations, as Mary alluded to. I'm really looking forward to today's discussion and hearing different perspectives on how we are all navigating this changing landscape. Back to you, Megan.
Excellent. Glad you all could join us today. And I'm glad that we'll have a range of insights to inform today's discussion. So, with that, then, let's get right to it. We know that biopharma is in a state of flux right now. The rapid growth of complex therapies such as CAR T, gene editing, and RNA based treatments, combined with the challenges of scaling late stage pipelines, are reshaping pharmacovigilance, or PV. So, as PV leaders from across the industry, how are these changes impacting you? Anupam, we'll start with you.
So, over the last decade or more so, the public awareness towards the safety has dramatically increased. Um, in the past, everybody used to be focused on efficacy, but now it has shifted to safety. And maybe part of this is the negative media coverage we have seen in last 2 decades. I will not go into too many details, but according to one research, the negative versus positive news about the pharmaceutical has increased dramatically in last 2 decades. And I believe the key turning point was some of the drugs like Vioxx or Avendia, which played a significant role changing the public perspective about the safety of that drug. So overall, the new regulatory guidance continue to make safety and pharmacovigilance more complex. And as we have seen from time to time, FDA comes with new guidance requiring more robust safety monitoring during the clinical trial as well as during the post-marketing phase.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Tanmay?
Thank you, Megan. I agree with Anupam here. The expectations around pharmacovigilance have changed. It's not just about accurate case processing anymore. In the past, inspectors focused on whether things were processed correctly. Today, that bar is much more higher. The pandemic made this shift obvious with real-time insights on vaccines, the side effects from all the vaccines, and safety pouring in from all around the world. So PV isn't a tick box exercise anymore. It's about providing timely, meaningful insights that can bolster trust with patients and the public, as well as informed decision making.
Thank you. Mary?
Hi. Differing from my colleagues just a little bit, in many ways, PV it may have transformed, but there's still the basics. I think it's more or less the way that we operate. Our presence in the organization is different. Quite often, we have to be the spokesperson for activities that are going on in the company, where there's marketing strategies. They're using different technologies in order to gather information, especially from the post-marketing space. They're using chatbots, they're using wearables, they're using apps. And so PV has to be a part of those conversations, because once you intersect with the patient and information's coming back to that company, you definitely have to address any potential adverse events. And everything's got to get into PV within 1 day. Based on our current procedure documents. So it really is about keeping in mind what our responsibilities are, but also working with our colleagues in other parts of the organization to educate them, to expose yourself to what they're bringing to the table, and ensure that your PV needs are still being met. But I also agree. It's you know, we're still heavily scrutinized. They may look at different things, but they also look at the same basics. You know, we get notifications back from health authorities for, you know, over reporting and things like that. So we're in constant interaction with the health authorities to ensure that we are staying compliant with their expectations. So.
Excellent. Thank you. Anupen, you had further thoughts to add?
Yeah. So many years ago, I was one of the FDA meeting, and there was a proposal on table that FDA should grant a conditional approval after the completion of phase 2, and then instead of running a full phase 3, the sponsor will collect real world evidence or additional evidence instead of running the phase 3. So many in the audience, including me, were very, very skeptical about this proposal. And I will tell you why. Because in most of the clinical trials, in phase 2 and phase 3, we already have a set definition of our endpoint. And just to give you an example, a few years ago, we came up with 4th international definition of myocardial infarction or heart attack. So that was a universal definition what should be a heart attack. So what happens if we will let general practitioner collect the information? That would be incomplete. They may not follow the same definition. Their education level will vary. I mean, it depends how many years ago they graduated from the medical school, because medical science keep on changing. So that's why I think this proposal will not work. And it has been almost a decade when I attended that meeting, and it was never implemented. So another point I would like to make, in clinical trial for common disease, we study a maximum of maybe 8 to 10,000 patients. But when drug is marketed, and if it is for a common disease like hypertension or diabetes or osteoarthritis, millions of patients are taking. So now that drug is interacting with multiple disease, multiple concomitant medication, and new side effect emerges. Because this is one of very common question I am asked, that why you didn't know when you ran the clinical trial. So what I am trying to emphasize, many times the new safety signal emerges after the drug is launched or marketed.
Thank you, Anupam. Mary, you had more comments?
No additional comments from me. Thanks, Megan.
Perfect. Why don't we go to Tanmay? Tanmay, you said that you had some additional comments, yes?
Yeah, thank you, Megan. And just to add on to what Anupam was mentioning, so overall there is a need that has been put in front of PV. This challenge also heavily depends on the company, the region where we operate, the product portfolio that every company has. So, and based on that, it changes quite a few things. So just as an example, our organization, Kyowa Kirin, doesn't need to track regulatory changes in Latin America. or manage generic portfolios, but other companies might. What's consistent is the pressure to deliver more with less. We are dealing with more data, more complex regulations globally, and tighter scrutiny. But we often have limited budgets and stretched teams. So in my opinion, that's the biggest challenge today.
Excellent. Thank you. And Anu, I do want to make sure that you get a voice in here as well.
So I completely agree with what I'm hearing from Tanmay and Anupam, right? These are exactly the kind of challenges we hear from stakeholders across the industry all the time. And there's also the reputational impact one has to consider about safety, right? If something goes wrong in the market, it affects the brand and the entire organization and its reputation. That's why many are advocating for proactive safety monitoring. However, implementing that requires significant resource and investments. We know it's easier said than done. Safety teams are constantly balancing these needs against the constraints they're working under. Reputation challenge and the push for proactive monitoring are recurring themes we hear again and again from the clients. And I think that's something, that's going to be there for a long time in the industry as well.
Excellent. Thank you all so much for your thoughts there. So given these conditions, then I can certainly understand how you all are feeling the pressure. What role is technology playing in helping you meet these heightened expectations? Mary, we'll start with you here.
Sure. Well, technology is truly perceived to be a benefit, and we utilize a lot of company approved AI tools in our industry. But what's interesting is that some of the opportunities you get exposed to don't entirely work out the way that you really were hoping. Certainly with anything related to Gen AI, you have to give it proper prompts. We've even experimented, trying to enhance the readability of some of the narratives that are, one of the areas that we always hear about is that you can, give it a few keywords and it can, essentially generate a very flowing user statement. We tried that with some of our narratives, and the system we use has a auto narrative feature, but the readability was we were getting some feedback from the health authorities that was not the way that they wanted it. They want things scholarly. They want things, written, publication ready almost. And that's very difficult to do with medical information, a medical, story of a patient. So we started to use the Gen AI tools that were approved for the organization to see if we can improve the readability. And unfortunately, it removed, key measures, say in lab work or descriptions in some of the radiology reports. So without a lot more testing, you really almost have to individualize the prompts in order to make it work. So, I think the other thing is that, I think specifically with some of the volumes that we sustain in our organization, they're always looking for tools, robotics, automation, touchless. Now, these are the safety reports that come into the organization that obviously have to go through a workflow and get processed, and all the medical information is put into that case and sent off to the health authority. What we've experienced with many of the tools, especially if you have one infrastructure and you're trying to feed let's just say a bolt-on tool into that technology, you find that you lose something in the translation. So you have to do a tremendous amount of preparation in order to configure the tool, and then you have to verify that it didn't lose anything in that transition. So as much as there's this belief that touchless is around the corner, I think we're still from, at least from the practices that we are working with, we're still steps away from seeing that. We've got and the other thing is that there's quite a bit of investment in these platforms. And so the spend is scrutinized a great deal before you invest in it. And there is fear that something better will come out shortly after you get it to go live. So there's always that sense. So automation is great, but the practicalities of it, it does have some limitations. So
Great
back
thoughts.
to you.
Thank you. Tanmay?
I think in what I mentioned earlier on with the transformation that I'm leading, it's a slightly different lens we are looking through. So it's automation, yes, it's a concern for us, technology overall, but we are focusing on an end-to-end transformation. It's rethinking the process alongside the tools. We have kept the core safety database constant, but added on bolt-on technologies. However, these technologies only deliver value if the process is also updated. That means moving some of the tasks away from the human handling aspect, making them much more efficient through technology. It's still early, I agree with Mary, but we're hoping to see efficiencies starting next year in what we are doing within the organization.
Great. Thank you. Anupam, your thoughts?
So I believe the standardization and simplification of the process are very, very important. And what happens that different geographies or during post-acquisition organizations, they often run parallel processes with the same intent, but what end up happening, they are siloed from each other. And this is a known fact that only 3% of the true adverse events are ever reported. So to fill that gap, not only we should make the process a standard and simple process, but ease of utilizing that process. So currently, if somebody has to report an adverse event, either they have to pick up the phone and call the company or FDA, or they should fill out a paper form. So the intent now should be, because the ubiquitous use of cell phone, there would be something which you can fill out very easily on your cell phone and push the button and it will go to the either pharmaceutical company or FDA.
Excellent. Thank you. Anu, your thoughts?
Sure. I kind of want to extend on what Tanmay was talking about, right? One thing that's very important, I think, is to think of technology in an end-to-end term. What we often see is that bolt-ons and point solutions don't always integrate smoothly with the core safety database. And you end up patching multiple solutions together, and it becomes very complex to get holistic insights. I think what is important is how does the process change with the way we reshape technology? I think that becomes extremely important. Otherwise, we end up forcing teams to spend maybe more time and money on workarounds, which really limits efficiency and agility. But what we are also noticing with a large number of the pharma companies that we work with is the way they are thinking about their technology investments. Some leaders are starting to ask questions like, do we really need to rely so heavily on the traditional safety databases? Could AI-driven or SaaS-based ecosystem take on more of that work, right? While it's early days, the regulatory framework still anchors around validated databases. But I think that is the kind of questioning that's going to drive innovation across the PD landscape. And I think I also want to say that as a vendor to a lot of these large pharma companies, mid-sized pharma companies, we sign up at a large extent to the improvement and the efficiencies in the process upfront contractually itself. So, the brunt of that then comes to the provider and doesn't necessarily sit with the sponsor per se. Over to you, Megan.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So, Tanmay, I'd love that you brought up the need to rethink processes and take a more end-to-end approach to make sure that you're gaining the most value from investment in technology. But I'm curious, what might that look like in practice?
Sure. Thank you, Megan. Traditionally, if you look at a safety database, it's the same across any company. You have the same workflow steps, triage, data entry, QC, and so on. But I mean, I truly believe that automation can reshape this entirely. If you automate data entry, data collection and entry, for example, you may not need those manual steps upfront. If you bring in a translation API, which can streamline the backend work, so you can provide local language support without extra manual effort for submitting to some local authorities. Of course, the biggest opportunity is with end-to-end workflow design, from collecting data at the source to using tech that identifies missing information, prompts reporters to provide that information we need. There's no need for follow-ups to be conducted. It's wishful thinking. But on our end, that reduces the need for these follow-ups. It also eases the burden on healthcare professionals, on patients. It's just better for everyone. We are not necessarily there yet, but over time, it could be a powerful driver for efficiency.
Excellent. Thank you. Anupam, your thoughts?
So I will maybe pivot back to the role of AI in safety and pharmacovigilance. And I personally believe, without any doubt, that this is a watershed moment for drug safety and pharmacovigilance. And I will give you some quick example why I think so. So many years ago, Genentech had a project where they utilized AI to pull adverse events from the social media. And wherever their drug was mentioned, and they were trying to see whether during that conversation any adverse event was mentioned. And when they gave same task to AI, the productivity was 200 times than when they ask Genentech employee to do the same thing. Another example is at Stanford 7-8 years ago. They had a project where within the Stanford medical system, they collected information about pravastatin and Paxil. So pravastatin is a cholesterol lowering drug. Paxil is an antidepressant. And both drug, if you look at the US package insert, it does not mention hypoglycemia or low blood sugar as a side effect. But when one drug was added on top of another drug, in non-diabetic, the increase in blood sugar was 12 milligram per deciliter. So normal fasting blood sugar is 100 milligram per deciliter. In diabetic patient, the increase was 30 milligram per deciliter when Paxil was or pravastatin was added on each other. So these kind of drug-drug interaction, we cannot, do because most of the time, each drug company, they do maybe 10, 15 drug-drug interaction studies, whatever they think are the most common drugs prescribed for this condition. So this is one way of identifying the newer side effect. And the last example I will give, there was another researcher at, if I remember correctly, Yale. So based on the chemical structure of the drug, they predicted what specific side effect this drug will have. So these are some of the examples where AI can be very, very beneficial in identifying the newer side effect of the drugs.
That is fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing. So, I think that we have a very exciting vision of where the right technology can take PV. What can our viewers do today to help expedite their progress toward these goals? Tanmay, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Megan. I'll start with the basics. It's important to start by evaluating your pain points. Are the pain points real in themselves, or are they really a symptom of something deeper? Once you have a better understanding of the true problems, that's only when you can figure out how best to address them. Sometimes that could mean deploying new technology, but other times it could be a simple, quick fix to the process. It is important to look at that entire PV operating model, including people, processes, partners, and platforms. And only then you can find the opportunities to boost efficiency, not just AI or software in isolation. Making these shifts will help us to catch the industry changes, allow us to work as proactively as possible within PV.
Excellent. Thank you. Mary, your thoughts?
Hi. I have to agree with my colleague that start with the pain points, but you also have to, in addition, do a little bit of a end-to-end, look back to see where those, where those dependencies are, and also how your procedures map into those activities. But I think the best way to start, obviously that's the internal components, but there's also the networking. There's a great deal of opportunity to, it's one of the reasons why companies are sometimes in various pockets. Takeda has a huge presence now in Cambridge, Massachusetts, right there with other pharmaceutical companies. That's there, intentionally, where essentially you want to be adjacent to other companies that are in a similar situation. Gives you that opportunity to network, and we leverage many of the resources where the safety databases teams will come in and provide a great deal of information and real life examples. We also rely heavily on our vendor, who is also working with other pharmaceutical companies to help identify the areas where they're seeing some true enhancements that maybe one of their other clients is bringing to the table. Obviously, there's you have to be extremely careful about any information that would be inappropriately shared. So we certainly don't, but we do. We do have conversations about how it can be done better, and ensure that we're trying to stay in front of it. There's also a lot of opportunities to network on, raise questions on PVNet, see what kind of trending is going on, see what other companies are doing. So it's looking at your own processes internally, and then working with network teams and colleagues externally to see what is trending in the organization. And if you get an opportunity, certainly engage your colleagues and regulatory authorities, because they have opinions, and you want to engage them. So,
excellent. Thank you so much. Anu or Anupam, any thoughts on this question or final thoughts before we shift into some audience questions?
I think one of the key messages is that we don't have a single roadmap to automation, right? There is no one solution that fits all. There's no single path forward. Every organization has its own priorities and pain points. So as a service provider, we tend to look at, what is best for our clients, bring forth those things which is relevant for them. And I think that's what I'm hearing from the panel as well. So it's not a one size fits all. It's about understanding what is necessary in your environment and then moving what is the right thing forward. Thank you, Megan.
All right, I think we're all set to move into some audience questions. It's a good place to wrap up the conversation. So our first question here, Mary, you may want to take a stab at this one. Where do you see real-world evidence making the biggest difference in submissions? Is it more on safety or effectiveness?
Well, I think my colleague already leaned into this with one of his responses previously, but the real world evidence is obviously getting the information into the organization quicker is always a desire. But then what do you do with it? How complete is it? Do you need to go back and test some of those models and ensure that those are that you have all the information you need to. The other thing, in getting information, aside from the fact that you want it to be complete, is that you want to make sure that you are staying in front of those interactions. So anytime you have an interaction with a patient or a patient family member or a healthcare professional, you have to make sure you've got mechanisms in place that are screening for adverse events. So those are just some of the burdens of collecting that information that we also have to be sensitive to. And we also have to make sure that our colleagues in the commercial organization or the marketing organizations are essentially, they reach out to you, they collaborate with you to make sure that we are not creating any sort of compliance issues that are going to be a problem for the organization downstream. But I think as far as safety or efficacy, I think it's the safety piece, like my colleague had indicated, that we're beginning to see a lot more, information that come through after a patient has used it, and then they have the ability to communicate. Social media is very busy collecting some of that information, and it can be a bit of a challenge, but that's the world we live in right now. So,
excellent. Thank you so much. Our next question, I knew I'll send this your way to kick off. How can smaller companies with fewer resources realistically meet the demand for technology-enabled, streamlined PV operations?
Well, thank you, Megan. I think that's where we believe the utility model becomes really powerful, right? And what do I mean by that? We think that instead of building massive bespoke PV infrastructure, smaller and mid-sized biopharmas can now consume PV capabilities almost as a service, whether that's case processing, signal management, or AI analytics, all built on a shared compliant technology stack. What it does is it lowers the barrier to entry while maintaining the same rigor and the need for audit. We work with several emerging biotechs that have started up with just a handful of products and have scaled seamlessly because the tech and process were already industrialized. I think it's about democratizing advanced PV and not really making it exclusive to big players. Megan.
I agree and with what Anu's just mentioned, because it does depend. For smaller companies, it's about being smart with partnerships and prioritizing the solutions. You can't have an enterprise-wide solution from day one, but you can start by identifying the highest friction points that exist within your PV process. It can be literature monitoring, it can be intake, and you can look at modular solutions to begin with before going for an end-to-end solution. You get compliance, you get scalability, and audit readiness without the overhead of building and maintaining everything yourself if you have an excellent partner to work with. So yes, streamlined tech-enabled PV is possible, even with limited resources. It's less about size and more about making focused strategic decisions early on.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Our next question, can you share tried and tested examples of automation that have demonstrably improved pharmacovigilance workflows, especially in areas like adverse event detection, case processing, or regulatory reporting? Tanmay, I understand you'd like to take this one?
Yeah, thank you, Megan. Sure. There are a few tried and tested areas where it has delivered a real measurable value. One is automated intake, especially for structured sources like A2B files or literature monitoring, partner case exchange. In these, you can have automation in ingestion of the data. Pre-validation reduces all the manual effort and cuts down intake timeline significantly. Another one, as the audience may know, is medical coding. So you can auto-encode with Medra using established rules that can improve consistency and reduce time spent on those repetitive tasks. Also, in terms of regulatory reporting, many companies now use scheduling tools, automation, or auto submissions. Once you have validated them, you can dispatch to your agencies or partners with minimal, if I can say, touchless submissions. The key to all this is not just automation for automation's sake, but embedding it as a process that's already well designed. And when you do that, you get time back for your teams to focus on quality, analysis, and decision making rather than just wrangling around with the data.
Well said. Thank you so much. Our next question asks, what are the key drivers behind the push for automation in PV? Cost, compliance, scalability, or something else? Who would like to take this one?
So maybe I will take this one. So this is all of the above. Definitely automation will reduce or have reduced the cost and scalability. Like Tanmay was saying, based on my past experience in companies I have worked, auto coding or auto narrative, have reduced the cost and scalability dramatically. So this is has been tested in the marketplace, what automation does.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Anu, did you have something to add?
I was just thinking, it always starts, I think, to a large extent with efficiency and cost. But I think one of the biggest things that automation does bring is the repeatability and thereby its impact on quality and compliance, right? I think all of these things are extremely important, scalability and quality and all of those things that we're talking about. But I think a lot of times it begins as an efficiency exercise and ends up actually giving you benefits on the quality side, which is probably exponential.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Our next question asks, are regulatory bodies like FDA, EMA, PMDA adapting innovations like automation in pharmacovigilance? Who'd like to take that?
I'll take a stab at it.
Okay.
So there's few of the bodies. So FDA, for example, is very much for automation. They have been using it recently for assessing applications. So MA applications are undergoing a automated review currently. FDA also has a certification program currently in place. If you are a company who has used technology, who has used AI, ML in any of the areas, they are welcoming you, especially only if you're a sponsor. They're not welcoming the vendors who have those technologies. They want the sponsors to come through and show them what is being done in PV, and you get a certified confirmation from FDA. MHRA has an automation sandbox where you can try different things. So yes, the agencies have also understood there is a need for automation. How far it goes is to be seen.
Excellent thought. Thank you so much. Our next question says, beyond ICSR automation, how open are regulators to AI, ML in evolving PV areas like signal detection and risk assessment? And should we expect new frameworks for safety monitoring?
I can build on to my previous answer, if that helps.
Okay.
So just to continue with what I was saying, so regulators are, again, becoming increasingly open to the idea of AI and ML in areas like signal detection and risk assessment. But obviously there is, it's with caution. They're not against innovation, but they want transparency. They want traceability. They want to understand how it's been validated. They want scientific justification. That's especially important when you build algorithms that start influencing your benefit risk decision. We've already seen movement, as I said, with FDA, where they are assessing these marketing authorizations. There are some discussion papers out there. They've had held stakeholder workshops around the role of AI in pharmacovigilance. So, but we're not at the stage yet where there's a formal framework for AI-driven signal detection, just based on the question being asked. But what's emerging is a set of expectations around the documentation, validation, human oversight, and explainability. So yes, I think we should expect some new frameworks, but it's also a phased evolution. In the meantime, us as companies, as sponsors, need to think about governance. How do we implement these tools in a way that's compliant now while being future-proof for where regulation is going?
Excellent. Well, that does it for us today. This has been a real treat speaking with all of you. I'd like to thank our speakers, Mary, Anupam, Tanmay, and Anu, for a great discussion today. We appreciate you sharing your insights and expertise with us. I'd also like to thank our audience for joining us today. If you would like to get in touch with Cognizant, please visit cognizant.com. We hope to see you again soon. Have a great day.